Hello and welcome to Smash Writing. And today we're taking a bit of a trip down memory lane for me. Growing up, I was addicted to these movies. And I haven't watched them in 15 to almost 20 years. And I was very excited to go back to watch them. And I couldn't believe just how nostalgic it was for me to watch The Transporter again. Let's dive in and talk about it, shall we? This movie opens up. We meet a driver named Frank, and he pulls up nice and casually outside of a bank to pick up some robbers. They were robbing the bank in process. And we find out real fast that Frank has rules, and he follows these rules. The deal was 3 people at an X amount of kilos. There are 4, and he's not driving unless they fix this situation. So the one guy eliminates the one, throws him out, and he's like, there, 3 people, exact amount of kilos. So we then get a spiritual car chase through the city, and he makes a getaway, and he drops him off. They try to offer him more money to take him somewhere else, but he's not interested. A deal's a deal. They were contracted to drive here, and he's going to take them here, and that's it. So they storm off and go their separate ways, and he goes home. He washes his car, he puts away his fake plates, because his car not only has a keypad for the ignition, but he can also flip the license plates around, which I thought was so cool. When I was a teenager, I'm like, I want that on my car for nothing. But anyway, he gets all that set, and he goes into the house. He's watching a bit of TV. He sees the robbers on the news have been arrested when they made a wrong turn and crashed into a cab. And as the reporter says, their poor driving skills is what got him caught. But an inspector shows up, Inspector Taccone, I believe his name is. We're just going to call him the inspector. So I will not embarrass myself. But he shows up, he's asking Frank these questions, and he knows. He suspects this is Frank's doing and everything. He has a great little line about, you can tell a lot about a man by the way he treats his cars, like how he treats himself. Which is great, because you see Frank's car is pristine, and the inspector's car is desperate for help, we'll say. But with nothing to connect Frank, because the plates don't match or anything, he bids himself adieu, and will come back and take him up for coffee invitation later on. Because him and Frank have very friendly back and forth banter. But as he leaves, Frank gets a call about another job. He's going to have a bag he needs to pick up. It needs to be picked up at 7 a.m. and he needs to go to this destination. Frank agrees. No names. Frank agrees. He'll pick it up at 7. He'll drop it off at noon. And if there's no one there, he will leave the package. So he shows up, and the package is loaded into the trunk, and off he goes. And it looks like it's going pretty well until he blows a tire out. And while he's changing the tire, he notices the bag is moving. He ignores it at first until he stops off for refreshments. And he drives a little bit further. He pops up in the trunk to give whoever's in the bag a drink. And he shoves her back into the bag. We find out it is a Chinese woman in the bag. He's driving a little bit further on, and she starts banging on the trunk, trying to get his attention. She has to use the bathroom. And of course, she tries to run, and he runs her down, no problem. Takes her back up, and after a brief little scuffle with 2 cops, he's back on the road. And we meet the boss. His name is Wall Street in the credits. Who asks him, like, did you open that bag? And Frank's like, no, that's a rule. Never look in the package. So he kind of laughs. He's like, well, I got one more package for you. They work out another quick little deal, and off he goes with the briefcase, and he explodes. And he's saved by this because he was stopped at a gas station for refreshments and stops at a vending machine. And this vending machine blew my mind on rewatch because I remember being obsessed with it when I was a kid because it has straws. It sounds so stupid, but it made me, one of the first times it made me think, like, what, is that a French thing? Do other countries' vending machines come with straws? I'm lucky if the vending machines around here work. I was just fascinated with that vending machine, and I got hit with a wave of nostalgia seeing that vending machine again. But his car is now in flames. which is real bad because there were the two cops he fought, he shoved into the trunk of the car. So he storms back to the house. Wall Street's already gone. So he beats up all these guys, he steals a car, and he drives away. Little does he know, though, the woman had, not really escaped, she's still taped to her chair, but she's stowed away in the back of this car that he stole. And he tries to ditch her on the side of the road, but he has second thoughts, and he goes and picks her up, shoves her back into the trunk, and he takes her home. And there we find out her name is Lai, and she's from China, and he is in deep shit. Not deep enough for him to care, though. He's going to bed. He's tired of this. He wants to put it behind him. Problems for tomorrow. Even to the point where he's like, you can go. I don't care. By all means, leave. But she does not leave. She starts poking around, and she finds a bunch of his old photographs from his time in the military to when he was a little kid, and she crashes on the couch. And he wakes up to coffee, tea, and breakfast, and she's being real friendly with him, despite the fact he just wants her to stop talking. But we get to return to the inspector here, because he finds Frank's car as big ball fire, to deceased cops in the back, and he's got some questions. And Frank tells him, well, my car was stolen the night before. Lai is claiming to be the cook, and that she drove him home. And the inspector is like, all right. He inspects the car a little bit, but he doesn't notice the front is smashed in from where Frank drove it through a gate. And the inspector's leaving, but he tells Frank, you're going to need a better story than this. You normally are better at keeping your business quiet, and it's now real loud, and when we talk about this again, I'm going to need a better story than this. And he goes back inside, and him and Lai immediately start butting heads here, because he does not even know if he wants to help Lai or not at this point. But it is broken up by the fact his house is attacked with multiple RPGs and hundreds of bullets. And they just make it to the basement, into this water entrance in his basement, and they escape through the ocean, and they break into a neighboring house. And because this is the 2000s action movie, we got to stop for the lovemaking scene. And we jump from that to them in the police station, talking to the inspector once again. And they're like, oh, we went out for a romantic swim. No one could see us. The place they pointed out has no witnesses and can't be seen from either side of the beach. And the inspector's like, you really want to go with this story? Your house is on fire. There's all these bullets. People who do this don't normally attack the wrong house here, Frank. And Frank's like, no, that's the story. And when the inspector steps out, Lai gets on the computer and she punches up, and then we find Wall Street's name. And he is already on the move a little bit. He took out one of the witnesses from the house. Frank left a survivor who tells him that it was the transporter who did this. And to keep him quiet, Wall Street eliminated him. So they leave the police station. Unfortunately, she doesn't exit out of the browser on the computer, so the inspector knows where they're going. But Frank and Lai get into another argument here, because Frank, now, with him believed to be dead, he just wants to start over, but Lai can't. And this is where we find out what's going on here, and that they have got 400 Chinese people in cargo containers, and it's due in a matter of days, and if they don't stop it, they're gone. And she claims her dad and her sisters are in this cargo container. And Frank calls her out for playing him for all this nicety she's been doing to him, and it's all to get him to help her. But he agrees to help her. They go and they attack Wall Street, and everything starts going out of control here because her father shows up, and the Wall Street is claiming this is a story she made up. There's no one in cargo containers. And we find out her father is one of the heads of this evil organization, and there are actual people in the cargo ships. But he gets knocked out and saved, though, by the inspector showing up, because the inspector knew where they were going. So Frank wakes up in a jail cell. And this is where he finally tells the inspector what's been going on. The inspector's like, I'll open an investigation. And he's like, it's going to be way too late for that, though, by the time you get on with it. So the inspector leaves the door open, and Frank uses the inspector as a hostage to get out of the police station, and he gets away on the boat with the inspector telling him, "You got 12 hours, pretty much." So he tracks him down to the cargo port area, where this is where we start getting all the big fight sequences. He tries to stop them from driving off with the two tractor-trailer cargo loads, but he can't quite do it because he keeps getting into these big fights, which are amazing, especially between and fighting in the bus and fighting on the bus garage area with oil. And he's still in pursuit of them once he finishes all these fight scenes, but his car that he stole's craps out. So he chases down a landing plane and commandeers that. And he finally ends up catching up to the cargo trucks. He fights off Wall Street. For a moment there, it looks a little bad for him because he gets knocked out of the trailer, but he gets back in. And he pulls alongside of the road. He has about a moment to breathe before the dad gets him at gunpoint. And he takes him off. And he tells the one guy to keep an eye on his daughter and shoot her if she tries anything. And you hear her screaming and the gunshot going off in the background, so they think she's dead. The dad goes to shoot Frank, but Lai shoots him in the back first. And then the inspector arrives, and they save the people in the truck, and we go to credits. I love the dry humor from Jason Statham. And also the fights. He does incredible group fights, especially in this movie, because, you know, in group fights in movies, they're all kind of a little goofy because you always get people standing in the background. But this movie almost seems to make a point to make sure that doesn't happen. They're fighting in real tight hallways and tight aisles like the bus or in between buses, so they can only attack him a few at a time. And when they do get him in the open garage, they give him a few gimmicks and some weapons to play with, like the oil. He drenches the ground in oil so no one can run at him. And then he drenches himself in oil so no one can grab him. And then he gets a bit goofy because he puts bike pedals on his feet to really help him maintain balance while he just repeatedly kicks people in the face. And it's so much fun to watch while it gives that added element of why they can't all just swarm him at one time. So I do like the added element of that they thought of that through, because you normally don't get that in these movies. The chemistry in this movie was fantastic. Jason Statham really bounces off of everyone he works with here, whether it's that friendly back and forth between him and Francois Berland, who plays the inspector, him and Shu Kui, I believe that's how you pronounce her name, who plays Lai. They have really good chemistry together. The friction between him and Matt Scholes, who plays Wall Street, is wonderful. I love that villain. He did a great job as a villain in the first place, especially when it's bouncing off of Frank, because he seems a bit more chaotic to Frank's meticulousness, and it really works pretty well. Again, very nostalgic movie for me. I really popped off for that goddamn vending machine. But we're going to go and do a bit of con work here. And one of the nostalgic bits blends with a con for me, because I remember the trailer, and you can look this up on YouTube. I'm not being crazy. I remember the trailer for this movie showing a scene where Frank deflects an RPG rocket with a pizza pan. And that's one of the main reasons I watched this movie, was because of that part in the trailer. And it's not here. They cut the scene. You can still see, like, the moment where it's supposed to happen, and it doesn't. It's so depressing they cut that part out of the movie. Because him chasing the plane, to me, is far sillier than him deflecting the RPG. Or anything else in this movie. Him chasing that plane. Despite, I know it's landing, but it goes on so long of him running through that field. But I'm so depressed they didn't have that scene in this movie. And it instituted an early warning in my brain to hate trailers, because they're bullshit all the time. Do watch a trailer for a movie. It's only ever one trailer, and I will only watch that one trailer. I'll watch it repeatedly. I've seen that trailer for Boy Kills World way too many times, but I will not watch multiple trailers for a movie anymore. And that's probably why, is the pizza pan. This con, it goes toward the subtitles. Like, fuck your subtitles, seriously. There are moments in this movie, because they're in France and everything, so you get people speaking in people speaking in French, dumbass. And you have Lai talking in Chinese to her dad, and the subtitles for those moments are speaking in French, speaking in Chinese. Like, oh, seriously, come on. Put a little, you can at least hire someone, fill in the gaps there. Jesus. Like I said, the plane scene was a bit silly, but honestly, I don't really have any negatives. It's a fun 2000s action movie. You can turn off your brain and just enjoy the fight sequences, enjoy the choreography in those moments, enjoy the dry banter between Statham and Francois, and just have a good time with it. My final grade has to be, I'll give it an A. It seems about right for an action movie from the 2000s. And with that, I bid you good do and have a good night. Bye bye.